A moment no one expected shocked the nation live on television. King Charles, in a rare and powerful statement, directly confronted Keir Starmer, shutting down his words with an authority that echoed through the UK. The royal warning was not subtle. It was a clear message, a final call that left the country stunned and erupting with reaction. This is not just a story about politics. It is a turning point in British history. What was said, how it was said, and what comes next will change everything. The air inside the room was thick with tension as King Charles spoke with calm but unmistakable authority. His voice, steady and firm, carried a weight that immediately silenced the usual noise of political debate. For years, the monarchy had remained mostly neutral, careful to avoid direct political involvement. But this moment was different. The King's words were sharp, clear, and delivered with a sense of urgency that no one could ignore. Keir Starmer, caught off guard, found himself on the receiving end of a royal rebuke. Unlike any seen before, the King addressed issues that have long simmered beneath the surface: trust in leadership, responsibility to the people, and the fragile state of the nation. There was no room for evasion or political spin. King Charles made it clear that the country was at a crossroads and that all leaders must answer to a higher standard. The live broadcast captured every reaction: the shock on Starmer's face, the silence that followed, and the immediate explosion of commentary across social media. Viewers watched as the King's words echoed beyond the room, resonating with a public weary of broken promises and political games. This was not just a speech, it was a royal decree demanding action, honesty, and accountability. For Starmer, the moment was a test like no other. His usual composure faltered as the King's message cut through the usual defences. The warning was unmistakable: continue on the current path and the consequences would be dire. The monarchy's intervention sent a clear signal that the stakes had never been higher and that no one, not even the leader of the opposition, was above scrutiny. Across the UK, the reaction was immediate and intense. Supporters of the King praised his courage and clarity, seeing his words as a necessary wake-up call for politicians. Critics warned of constitutional overreach and questioned the role of the monarchy in modern politics, but the public's response was unmistakable: a nation hungry for real leadership, tired of empty rhetoric and ready for change. Inside Parliament, the atmosphere shifted dramatically. The King's statement acted as a catalyst, sparking debates and raising questions about the future direction of the government and opposition alike. Political figures scrambled to respond, some echoing the call for accountability, others defending their positions, but clearly unsettled by the royal intervention. The timing of the speech was critical. Britain faces numerous challenges: economic uncertainty, social unrest, and a divided electorate. King Charles's words underscored the urgency of these issues and the need for unity and integrity at the highest levels of power. His warning was not just about the present moment, but about the future of the nation and its place in the world. As the broadcast ended, one thing was clear: the political landscape had changed irrevocably. King Charles had broken a long-standing tradition of royal silence, stepping into the political arena with a message that demanded attention. For Keir Starmer and all political leaders, the message was simple but profound: lead with honour or face the consequences. The days ahead promised to be turbulent. Questions about Starmer's response, the government's next moves, and the monarchy's evolving role in politics would dominate headlines, but for now the nation was left to absorb a moment that few will forget. A royal warning that shook the foundations of power and ignited a firestorm of debate and speculation. The impact of King Charles's powerful statement quickly spread beyond the walls of Parliament and the royal residence, stirring a firestorm of discussion and division throughout the United Kingdom. Ordinary citizens, political figures, and media outlets alike grappled with the unprecedented moment when the monarch openly challenged Keir Starmer. For many, the King's intervention was a shocking but welcome call to action. For others, it raised serious questions about the boundaries of constitutional monarchy and political neutrality. In the days following the broadcast, social media platforms exploded with reactions. Clips of the King's remarks circulated rapidly, accompanied by fervent debates and impassioned opinions. Supporters of the monarchy hailed King Charles for breaking his silence at a critical juncture, applauding his courage to speak frankly about leadership and accountability. To them, the King's words echoed the frustrations of a populace disillusioned by political gridlock, empty promises, and growing mistrust in elected officials. Conversely, critics expressed alarm over what they perceived as a breach of constitutional norms. Many argued that the monarch's role should remain above politics, serving as a unifying figure rather than a direct critic of political leaders. They warned that such an intervention could set a dangerous precedent, potentially undermining democratic processes and fueling political instability. Despite these concerns, even some detractors admitted that King Charles's message highlighted real issues facing the nation. Within Parliament, the royal warning intensified existing tensions. Members of the government and opposition alike found themselves forced to confront the King's call for honesty and responsibility. For the ruling party, the speech was a stark reminder that public patience was wearing thin and that renewed efforts were necessary to restore trust. Opposition figures, including Starmer, faced heightened scrutiny as they navigated the fallout, aware that the King's words had shifted the political conversation in fundamental ways. Starmer's immediate response was cautious but measured. In press statements following the broadcast, he acknowledged the challenges facing the country and affirmed his commitment to serving the public with integrity. Yet beneath the surface, his team was reportedly scrambling to manage the crisis and plot the next moves. Advisors debated whether to emphasise unity and cooperation or adopt a more defensive posture in response to the royal intervention. Meanwhile, the media spotlight on Starmer intensified. Analysts dissected every word and gesture, searching for signs of weakness or resolve. The opposition leader's approval ratings, already fragile, faced additional pressure as public opinion wavered in the wake of the speech. Polls suggested a nation divided, not only on political lines, but on views of the monarchy's role in contemporary governance. The broader political landscape felt the ripple effects as well. Allies of Starmer urged calm and focused messaging, emphasising the need for constructive dialogue and reform. At the same time, critics grew bolder, using the King's warning to justify calls for change in leadership and direction. Parliamentary debates grew more heated, and whispers of political upheaval grew louder. Outside political circles, the King's words sparked a renewed conversation about national identity, leadership, and the future of British democracy. Citizens from all walks of life engaged in discussions about what true accountability means and how power should be exercised responsibly. The speech had tapped into deep-seated anxieties about the country's direction and the effectiveness of its institutions. As the days turned into weeks, the atmosphere remained charged with uncertainty and expectation. The royal warning had not been a passing moment, but a catalyst accelerating political drama and demanding that leaders reckon with both public demands and historical legacies. King Charles's intervention was now part of the national narrative, and its consequences continue to unfold in real time. For Starmer, the path forward was fraught with challenges. The need to rebuild trust, respond to the King's call, and navigate the complex terrain of modern British politics placed immense pressure on his leadership. How he would rise to this test, and whether he could restore confidence in himself and his party, remained to be seen. Yet one fact was undeniable: the monarchy's unprecedented engagement had shifted the political landscape. The delicate balance between tradition and change, authority and democracy had been disturbed. The country faced a moment of reckoning, and the actions taken in the days and months ahead would shape its future profoundly. As the nation grappled with the shock of King Charles's live intervention, the political repercussions deepened. Inside Westminster, the atmosphere was electric, filled with a mix of apprehension and calculation. Lawmakers from all parties understood that the monarch's rare and forceful message had upended the usual dynamics of British politics. The traditional boundaries between the Crown and government had been tested in an unprecedented way. Keir Starmer, at the centre of the storm, faced an extraordinary challenge. His leadership was suddenly under intense scrutiny, not only from political opponents, but from the very institution many consider the symbol of national unity. Advisors warned that ignoring the King's warning could cost him public support and political credibility. The stakes were higher than ever, and every decision mattered. Behind closed doors, Starmer's team worked around the clock. balancing the need to respond with caution against the urgency demanded by the situation. Some urged an immediate and full acknowledgement of the King's concerns, advocating for transparent reforms and stronger commitments to accountability. Others worried that too much concession could be seen as weakness, undermining Starmer's authority and political agenda. The tension within the Labour Party was palpable. While many members rallied to defend their leader, the royal warning exposed fractures that had long simmered beneath the surface. Questions about the party's direction, priorities and ability to lead effectively gained new momentum. The crisis prompted heated debates about whether Starmer's approach aligned with the expectations of both the public and the monarchy. Opposition parties seized the opportunity to intensify their attacks. They portrayed the King's message as a clear indictment of Starmer's leadership and the government's performance. Parliamentary sessions became arenas of sharp criticism, with calls for accountability echoing louder than ever. Some suggested that the royal warning had given political opponents fresh legitimacy in their demands for change. Public reaction continued to evolve as more analysis and commentary emerged. For many citizens, King Charles's words had validated long-held frustrations about political leadership. Polls revealed a growing demand for honesty, transparency and effective governance. Yet the speech also sparked debates about the role of the monarchy, with some questioning whether such direct involvement was appropriate or destabilising. Media outlets worldwide followed the unfolding drama closely. International observers noted the unusual nature of the monarch's intervention, comparing it to rare historical precedents. The situation was framed as a moment of constitutional significance, raising broader questions about the balance of power in modern democracies. The spotlight on Britain's political institutions intensified as a result. Within the government, efforts to maintain stability became paramount. Civil servants and officials sought to reassure the public and international partners that the country's democratic processes remained intact. The message was clear. While the monarch's words were impactful, the political system was resilient. Still, uncertainty lingered, and the path ahead was anything but certain. Amid this complex backdrop, the core issue remained the same: the urgent need for leadership that could restore faith and guide the nation through turbulent times. King Charles's warning had crystallised a demand for change that transcended party politics. It was a call for a new era of responsibility, transparency and service to the people. For Keir Starmer, the weeks ahead would test not only his political skills, but his ability to connect with a public hungry for genuine leadership. How he managed this crisis would define his legacy and influence the future of British politics. The pressure was immense, but so was the opportunity to transform adversity into renewal. As the country watched and waited, the sense of suspense grew. The royal warning had shifted the narrative, altered expectations, and set the stage for a dramatic chapter in Britain's history. The questions now were clear. Could Starmer rise to meet this moment? Would the monarchy's rare intervention spur meaningful change? And what would be the lasting impact on the delicate balance between tradition and modern governance? The answers remained unknown, but the nation was watching closely. Every development carried weight, every decision shaped the future, and the story was far from over. The gravity of King Charles's intervention had sent shockwaves not only through the political corridors of Westminster, but also across every corner of British society. The traditional reticence of the monarchy, especially in public political matters, was the cornerstone of the UK's constitutional framework. For a reigning monarch to deliver such a direct and uncompromising message to Keir Starmer was unprecedented and historic. The nation was now confronting a new reality where the crown was no longer just a symbolic figurehead, but an active voice demanding accountability and reform. Keir Starmer found himself at a crossroads that no political leader ever desires to face. His reputation as a measured and principled politician was now under intense scrutiny. The King's words had effectively stripped away layers of political theatre, forcing a raw and honest examination of Starmer's leadership and the broader challenges facing his party. The spotlight was unforgiving, and every action he took was magnified, dissected and debated endlessly by politicians, media and the public alike. Within the walls of Labour Party headquarters, the atmosphere was thick with tension and uncertainty. Starmer's closest advisors were locked in continuous discussions, weighing the risks and benefits of every strategic move. Should they double down on promises of reform and transparency, embracing the King's call head on, or should they attempt to distance themselves from the royal message to maintain political autonomy? These decisions were not just about optics. They would determine the trajectory of the party's future and Starmer's own political survival. This internal conflict revealed deep fissures within Labour. Some members saw the King's intervention as a necessary wake-up call that could reinvigorate the party's commitment to public service and ethical governance. They argued that acknowledging the monarch's concerns openly would demonstrate maturity and responsibility. Others feared that conceding too much could be perceived as weakness, emboldening opponents and undermining the party's ability to compete effectively in upcoming elections. The opposition capitalised relentlessly on this moment. Conservative MPs and other political adversaries framed King Charles's warning as a damning indictment of Labour's leadership failures. Parliamentary debates became increasingly fierce, with opposition figures seizing every opportunity to question Starmer's integrity and competence. These attacks further isolated Starmer, constraining his ability to present a united front and making it harder to focus on policy initiatives. Meanwhile, public opinion polls showed a nation divided and anxious, while some citizens expressed renewed hope that the royal message would spark meaningful change. Others worried about the potential for political instability. The once steadfast trust in democratic institutions wavered, replaced by scepticism and a growing sense of disillusionment. This division reflected broader societal concerns about transparency, leadership, and the responsiveness of elected officials to the public's needs. Media coverage amplified these sentiments, with analysis and commentary emphasising the constitutional and political significance of the King's speech. International news outlets followed the story closely, highlighting the uniqueness of a monarch publicly addressing a political leader with such gravity. Comparisons were drawn to historical moments when royal interventions altered the course of nations, underscoring the weight of the current situation. Inside government offices, officials worked tirelessly to manage the fallout and maintain the country's image of stability. Reassurances were issued that democratic processes remained intact, even as the monarchy took on a more vocal role. Diplomatic communications sought to calm international partners who were watching the UK's political crisis with keen interest. Despite these efforts, the undercurrent of uncertainty persisted. For Starmer, the challenges were multifaceted. Beyond the immediate political damage, he faced the daunting task of rebuilding trust with a public that felt betrayed and frustrated. This required not only policy adjustments, but a profound shift in how leadership was perceived and enacted. The King's intervention had raised expectations for authenticity, accountability, and a genuine commitment to addressing the nation's most pressing problems. The Labour Party's response strategy became a subject of intense debate. Some advocated for a radical rebranding focused on transparency and reform, positioning the party as the solution to the crisis exposed by the royal warning. Others cautioned that such a shift might alienate traditional supporters and fragment the party's base. Balancing these competing interests was an enormous challenge, made even more complex by the ongoing media scrutiny.